Hey guys, welcome back to Programming Tutorials. Today we're going to look at creating a database, creating some tables in it, and we might touch upon the early basis of data normalization within SQL as well. This video is a little bit weird for me because it's out of sync. This is in the middle of recording another video, but I need this database for that video, so I figured I might as well make a video out of it. So here we go. We are going to start a new query up here. And it's been a while since I've coded all this from scratch, so it might be a little bit rusty, but let's go for it. So, create database. What do we want to call it? Let's just call it, we'll call it Programming Tutorials, why not? Programming Tutorials. I'm certain at some stage here I'm going to make some typos, and it's going to go horrendously, but there you go. So let's put go statements in it. So, we want some basic tables. So, create table. What do we want? People. People are going to have an identity. Ooh. Crikey, my syntax is all over the place. Identity 1, 1. People are going to have a first name. I'm going to store the first name in a varchar. 50 is reasonable, I think. A last name. Varchar 50 again for that. What characteristics do I want these to tell these people? Let's have a give them a location. So the first table I'm going to create is going to be called people, and what I'm going to do for my tutorials that I've got planned, I'm going to create a table that's really badly designed in terms of a relational database, and that's the first table I'm going to create here. Then I'm going to create a second table called people, maybe people v2 or something along the lines of that. And that's when I'm going to go into the data normalization and why that you would set things up in that way. I'll touch upon that in just a moment. Location's horrible because that's a key word in SQL. What else can I use instead of that? Let's call it city. Another 50 for city. Sure, we can have a date of birth in there as well. And just because I'm thinking about going to the pub, we will have a drink that they are associated with as well. So what they like to drink. Drink, yeah, that'll do. So let's go ahead and create a table. So I said just a moment ago that this was a really poorly structured table in terms of relational databases and data normalization. Why is that? So if I think about the city that somebody lives in, if I want to insert some data onto this table, and let's take myself, so I've got my data populated inside this table. Do you know what, it'd probably be easier, let me get a spreadsheet up, give me a second. Okay, so I've just mocked up what the data might look like inside the people table that we've created, and you can see I've made a typo intentionally to demonstrate this purpose here, and the typo is in London, so I've spelt London with 2 N's on the end. Now the reason why this is bad normalization, number one, I've got London in there, not New York, I've got London in there 3 times, which means I'm storing the word London 3 times within our SQL database. What would be a better structure for this table would be to have a city ID and have, let's pretend that London is ID 1, Manchester is 2, Paris is 3, New York is 4. I'm almost certainly going to forget those. Then on sheet 2 I will have ID 1 London, I've already forgot them, ID 2 is Manchester, ID 3 is Paris, ID 4 is New York. I'm certain I'm missing one, but that will do. So what this means is I'm now referring to my cities via their ID. So if I had made that same mistake over here, instead of having to update 3 records in this table, which will be the people table, what I need to do is I keep them assigned to city ID 1, I just amend the spelling of it once in here. Now this is a small table at the moment, it's only got 6 rows in it, but if I had 50,000 rows in here and I had 40,000 people that were linked to City ID London, I'd have to update 40,000 records in this table. Whereas when you do data normalization, and you refer to that via its ID, and then only updating one record in there. So it just makes it a lot more efficient, and also you're storing less data, so things will be faster, you'll be using less space. So that's a little bit on data normalization. I'm not going to go into it too much. So for now, let's create the other tables. So create table people normalized. So ID int identity equal 1. The ID thing that I always do, so I call everything, the first column in most tables, 99% of tables, I call it ID. It's an integer type, and the identity means increase the identity by 1 every time and start the seed at 1. I think it's that way around. It could be the other way around. Can't remember off the top of my head. So we're still going to have a first name. At this stage, there's no point in normalizing first name and last name. They are usually bespoke or custom enough that they'll require to be in this table. So this time we have a city ID, which is going to be an integer. We have a date of birth, which is still date time, and we're going to do the same thing with our drink. So we're going to call it drink ID, and that will also be an integer. So that means that we then need a city table, or I could write correct table first. Correct table city ID int. I should just copy these, shouldn't I? City name varchar 50, and just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put in a city population, just because this will help later on in tutorials when again I go into much more detail on data normalization. So city population, it's always going to be a whole number, and it's never going to be over 2 trillion, I think number is, so we'll keep it as an integer for the moment. Then we're also going to need a drinks table as well, so create table drinks. Got that, yep. Drink name varchar 50, and why not, let's have an alcohol content, I think that's what it's called, or alcohol proof or something. We'll leave it as that, and that's going to be a floating point. So let's create all of these tables. Lovely. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to write a load of insert statements to populate these. So if I scroll down here, I'm going to write the first one for people, but I've got quite a bit of data to populate, and you don't want to sit and watch me write all of those. Unless you really do, unless you're that bored, but I'm not going to include it. So get your kicks some other way. So insert into people. What have I got? First name, last name, city, date of birth, and drink. And then what I'm going to do, so I'm declaring that I'm going to insert some data. That's the table I'm inserting it into, and these are the columns. Now you might have noticed that I've missed out the ID column, and that's because I'm not assigning an ID to these people. Using the identity seed and the identity increment amount, the people will be provided an ID themselves by SQL. So what I want to do is select, let's just do the first entry on there. In fact, I'm going to copy this down here so I got it. So select Scott, Johnson, city is London, date of birth, no, it's not 2019, that's today's date, and finally the drink is Foster's. Oh, I've just noticed, if you look up here, I'm currently operating on the master database, and this table, table does exist in master, because that's where I've been creating all of these. Brilliant. Okay, I should edit that out, but I'm too lazy to. So instead, let's go and create these tables again in the correct database. Right, now we're on the right database, let's insert that row of data. Very quickly, let's just confirm it's been inserted. So select start from people. We have a row of data. Now, I have the very tedious task of inserting the rest of this data. So I'll be back when that's done. Okay, that was fun. I think I've done everything now. Let's just have a quick look. So, people is populated. People normalized is populated. I've also realised while I was doing this that city should probably be called cities, because if I have a look, I called it drinks plural. That should be consistent, but it's taken me long enough to write this. I'm not changing it. The other thing that some people are probably going to try and pick me up on is New York being a state, but I meant New York City, so there's my get out of jail free card. So that is all of my tables populated. That is the basics of creating a database, creating some tables and inserting some rows. Now, the only other thing I'm going to go through over here on the database is you can see that my database still doesn't exist. That's because sometimes you have to right click and hit refresh, or there's a little refresh button up there. So if I expand out Programming Tutorials, expand out my tables, I can see they are all there, populated exactly as I would expect. Okay, that was a little bit of a side video. It wasn't much of a tutorial, but I had to go through the pain for one of my other videos, so I figured I'd just make a video and upload it anyway. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you check out all my other videos, and if you do like them, drop a like and subscribe. Thank you guys, bye.